Where's the, let me see the runners up. Welcome to the Free Library of Philadelphia's second annual Civics Fair and panel discussion. My name is Elaine Tomlin, Free Library Trustee Board member. It is my passion about civics. It is my passion that civics will be taught at all of the branches in the Free Library of Philadelphia in the month of September. September will be the Civics Month at the Free Library of Philadelphia. It is the place where you can come and get civic information. I just want to ask and say to you all, thanks for showing up. And I also want to say to you all to give yourself a clap for just being here on this great important topic that is needed so much in the community to understand. At this time, we're going to, let's see. I'm going to ask Tony Cuffey from WHYY to come forward. Thank you.
Good morning, and then thank you, Elaine. Wow, this is being up first is whew, okay, but I like it though. It's all good. So, on behalf of WHYY, thank you for being here regarding this very important topic. I'd like to also thank Ms. Elaine Tomlin for driving into existence this very endeavor. When I was approached about it last year, and I'm proud to say this is my second year being a part of this, I jumped right on it because it's as a topic, it's so critical, and our young people are being underserved. But I'll get to that in a second. So, secondly, I'd like to also thank the Free Library for hosting, of course, and along with their unwavering support of the WHYY Bridging Blocks program. And I would give a shout out to Veronica Brito, who you've heard from earlier, who's my collaborator, conspirator. No, that's not true. She's head of adult programs here, and she's terrific. We've formed a terrific, really meaningful partnership and have engaged with a lot of the communities across the market, and especially Philadelphia. So just to give you a little more background about Bridging Blocks, what we do is we bring people together to talk about challenging subjects. And, sadly, everybody, so many people live in basically an echo chamber where algorithms serve you thinking, they know what you want to hear. So often people they'll form opinions without actually interacting with another human being. They never get to expand their horizons. The point is to allow people to express themselves in safe environments, without judgment. Because let's keep it real. Like, you can't bring up certain subjects at the Thanksgiving table without them devolving into a fist fight in the lawn, right? Like, it's just madness out there, and it beats arguing with some fool on Facebook, right? So at least now we bring people together, and we talk about all kinds of things, but we bring people together, they discuss their points of view, and it's humanizing, right? It brings a sense of humanity, bringing people together, talking about stuff. And you don't necessarily have to agree with them, but at least, hopefully your horizons have been expanded, maybe theirs have been too. Because some people will show up just to challenge their own beliefs, and that's really what it's about, right? You want to learn from other people and maybe benefit from their lived experiences, and maybe to help you navigate the world a little better, or at least see the world through maybe a slightly different lens. Quite often what happens is, before I get there, I just want to say that we do these events every month at Parkway Central, as well as other regional locations throughout the city. And it's through the partnership with the Free Library and Veronica that is possible, funded by WHYY. They're free to attend. You can check them out at whyy.org, because we talk about a different subject every single month. This month was on equity in public education, right? Because that matters. But what's interesting is, regardless of the subject, it seems that everything always comes back to the ballot box. And I mean, and just to give you an example, I mean, some of the subjects we've covered just this year, as I mentioned, equity in public education, ableism, how does Philadelphia show up for the disabled? Of course, that's a national or international question. The invisible, unhoused in Philadelphia, heavy, right? Immigration, a small subject that's been in the news as of late. That's called navigating borders, public safety, AI, gentrification. I bet you if I asked every single person here what their definition of gentrification is, everybody would have a different opinion. It's an interesting topic because it used to be racial, but now it's economic. All right, before I started bridging blocks here, I'll keep it moving. Public transportation, birthing rights, among others. And every single subject that we talk about can be impacted at the ballot box. Think about that. Every single subject you can consider that, because we purposely talk about issues that cross all lines and socioeconomic divides for that very specific purpose, so people can at least have a better understanding of things that they can influence. Because that's one of the things we have in this country that most people don't appreciate. And so in closing, a couple of things. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Education did a study that suggested that only 22% of students are proficient in civics comprehension. In America, that's what it is, though, right? We have all heard about voter apathy, and it's a real problem, of course. But sadly, it starts before kids become adults and are of voting age, is when that divide starts. And, sadly, I don't want to, but let's call it what it is, right? If the parents don't vote, if the parents don't talk about voting, the kids don't think about it. So, we have to figure out ways, and it's endeavors like these that help us impact these kids so they can start to think beyond their own, staring at their screens, which is what a lot of kids do. So with that, again, I'll just say the importance of civic education and this topic, and thank you. Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony, and we're glad to continue our partnership with WHYY in the Bridging Blocks programs. All right, so we have a special greeting via video from Associate Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. So she wanted to send her greetings here, and she recorded this video just for us.
Hello, everyone. I am delighted to extend my warmest virtual greetings to all of you at the second annual Philadelphia Civics Fair. It is my understanding that the Civics Fair brings together a variety of nonprofits, education groups, and government agencies to offer critical information to the public on civics, justice, law, and the courts. So let me start by thanking the Free Library of Philadelphia for hosting this important event and for their unwavering commitment to public education. In the brief time I have in this video today, I want to express my strong support of this crucial work and also highlight the role of education in upholding democratic values while offering advice for how you too can help support this worthy mission. As a judge, I have a unique responsibility to decide cases and controversies that are brought to the court by litigants. My duty is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the rule of law in every case. And I am also privileged to help educate my fellow citizens about what we do as judges. Indeed, those two roles are somewhat related because the public's trust and confidence in the judgments of the courts depends on people's understanding of the role of the courts in a democratic system of government and what judicial independence means. That is why events like this one are so important. My own brief answer to the question, what do courts do and why does it matter, is as follows. In short, the courts are neutral arbiters of the inevitable disputes that are bound to arise between people in a free society. Disagreements will happen, and there must be some non-violent forum to resolve them. Because our society is governed by law, judges reference and rely on law to resolve those disputes, and they do so in a fair and even-handed manner. In our system, judges operate independently, meaning they render their decisions based on their own views of what the law requires, not bowing to political pressure, unethical incentives, or any other means of improper influence. And as such, judicial independence is a key ingredient to equal justice under law, which is essential for a free, fair, and democratic society. So, for our democratic system of government to work as intended, people have to understand the crucial role of the courts. And it is through education that we, the people, are able to fully appreciate the judicial function, how it differs from politics, and how courts operate to promote the Constitution and the rule of law. As my predecessor, mentor, and friend, Associate Justice Stephen Breyer once said, quote, trust in the court, without which our democratic system cannot function, requires knowledge. It requires understanding. It requires engagement. In a word, it requires work. Work on the part of all citizens. And we must undertake that work together. End quote. As today's panel gives you more information about what courts do, here are 3 brief suggestions that I hope you will consider. First, you can strive to learn all that you can from the information available to you, not only during today's presentation, but also elsewhere in the library and beyond. There are many experts and organizations who are willing to share their experiences and knowledge. To the extent possible, take advantage of those opportunities. Second, when you depart from this event today, please take what you have learned and share it. You would be surprised how impactful simple conversations with peers, friends, and family can be in spreading important information about how our government functions. Third and finally, I implore you to stay informed and engaged. In a democracy, the people and their representatives are called upon to make important decisions on a daily basis, decisions that can affect all of our lives. And the courts interpret and apply the laws to real life situations. After participating in this civics fair, you will know a lot about how our system works and how such decisions are made. And you can use that knowledge to be a voice for and in your community. With those few words of encouragement, I will hand the microphone back over to the organizers of this great gathering. Thank you again to the Free Library of Philadelphia for inviting me to share this message with you, and I send my best wishes for an illuminating and engaging panel discussion.
Thank you.
Justice Kevin Dougherty graduated from Temple University and then attended Antioch School of Law in Washington, D.C. Following that, he started his legal career as an assistant district attorney in Philadelphia and later went into private practice. In 2001, Dougherty was appointed to the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas, and he won election to a full 10-year term later that year. Justice Dougherty requested to be assigned to family court because he felt that he could influence the lives of our most vulnerable citizens and help mold troubled youth into happy, healthy, and productive members of society. In recognition of his administrative skills and commitment to reforming the juvenile justice system, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court appointed Justice Dougherty to be administrative judge of the Philadelphia Family Court in 2005, eventually serving as the longest administrative judge in Philadelphia history. In this capacity, Justice Dougherty initiated numerous diversionary programs benefiting the most at-risk and vulnerable children in Philadelphia, including the Crossover Program, the Adolescent Medicine Initiative, and the Expungement Initiative. In 2014, Justice Dougherty was reassigned as the administrative judge of the Trial Division, First Judicial District, as such, ran the largest court system in Pennsylvania while serving as chair of the Administrative Governing Board. Justice Dougherty was elected to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania on November 3, 2015. With a passion for issues facing children and families, Justice Dougherty, alongside his fellow justices, has taken a keen interest in making the unified judicial system of Pennsylvania a model for the country when it comes to issues such as access to justice, alternative sentencing, transparency within the court system, and the most importantly, keeping an open dialogue between the various stakeholders within the judicial branch of government. In addition, he proudly represents the Supreme Court on both the statewide Dependency Court Improvement Program, the Autism and the Courts Initiative, and the new Supreme Court Behavioral Health Initiative. At this time, I would like to ask our keynote speaker, Supreme Court Justice Kevin Dougherty, to come forward.
Thank you, Miss Elaine. Thank you, Philadelphia Library. Thank you for coming out early in the morning to be entertained by this civic association. The library, yeah, apologies. We're here at a very interesting time in the world. What we see nationally can take effect in each of the 50 states if permitted. The only barrier to tyranny is an independent judiciary. You're going to hear from jurists who truly understand that the separation of powers is sacred to our Constitution. It's not a suggestion. See, thanks, buddy, babe. And it all starts with judges. And I have to share with you, I know the judges that will be speaking. You're going to see some of Philadelphia and the county's brightest and finest minds who truly care about what happens each day, every day in their courtroom. I'm not going to get into the details, but I do want you all to understand that if we want to have a just society, the life that we choose and the way we will live does not get better by chance. It gets better by choice, which is why the Founding Fathers permitted in the original Constitution and the Pennsylvania Constitution to have a judiciary separate and apart from the executive and the General Assembly. We understand that. They call it the tripartite government. When we're talking about the judiciary, Pennsylvania, whose Constitution is older than the United States, and whose Constitution provides Pennsylvanians with more rights than the United States Constitution does, in our Constitution, it requires for the election of judges and justices and all members of the legal system with the judiciary. Here's the concern. In the Constitution, it says you need to elect an individual, and that person will serve a 10-year term. During my experience, at least a quarter of a century on the bench, what has fascinated me and concerned me and truly saddened me is that I traverse this state, and even in Philadelphia, more people know the name of the Kardashian sisters than they do any judge in municipal common pleas and in the Supreme Court. Yet, the Kardashians will give you an hour worth of entertainment, and judges will affect your life. People, understand and share with your neighbors and your family and your friends, elections matter. When you elect a judge, you're giving an individual a pen. And with that pen, they can take your home, they can take your children, and God forbid, they can take your life. No one knows who the judge is until it's too late when they're standing in front of her or him. We need to invest in our own self-education as to who wants to represent the judiciary. Now, we have provided the people who will be speaking with pens who have used that pen for social change and justice. The purpose of our system is that if you don't like what happened in your trial, if we gave that pen to the wrong person, those decisions can be reviewed in a triangular power structure. And I'm sure Justice McCaffrey, my friend and colleague from Philadelphia, who sits with me with 5 other members on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, you're going to hear about us being at the apex, which means we are the final arbiters. However, I don't want to take long because you have a 2-hour panel, but I do want you to understand there's no power for change greater than a community understanding what it wants and demanding what it wants. Our lives, our freedoms, the way we live could be under attack. The backstop of democracy will lie in an independent judiciary. Understand the power. We are a partner of government. I'd like to say we're the first branch of government. The President and the General Assembly, they live based upon majority rule. Whoever gets the most votes win. The system, because they want us to be part of that system, they have permitted the citizens to vote in a partisan election for our judges. But once we get elected as a judge, we hang up that partisan title the moment we put on our black robe. We need to protect the robe, we need to protect judicial independence, and we need to protect the way life is in Pennsylvania by knowing, understanding, and voting for judges. I end it this way. We serve at your pleasure. You here in this room, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. You have the direction of Pennsylvania's democracy at your fingertip. Use it wisely, whether you go into the ballot box or you use your own pen to fill out your mail-in ballot. But above all, your right to vote is protected by the courts, and we in turn request that you remember we protect your courts and that you in kind will protect us for additional years on this bench so that we can continue doing what is right and just, not only for Philadelphia, but for all Pennsylvanians. Thank you.
We're going to do a little shift. We have one of our partners here, NCNW, will share a few words, one of our program partners, and then we'll start off with reading the bio of our moderator. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. My name is Darnita Clark Carter, and I serve as the president of the Philadelphia section of the National Council of Negro Women. Our sister Elaine is such a phenomenal woman. She uses her network to reach and help us achieve our national initiative of civic engagement as well as social justice. And as I just heard Judge speaking, it is crucial that we exercise who and what we are as American citizens. So I thank you all for joining us to listen in on this important conversation. So thank you for joining.
Thank you, Madam President of NCNW Philadelphia section. At this time, I'm going to read the bio of Honorable A. Nicole Tate Wilborn. Judge A. Nicole Tate Wilborn is currently assigned to the Family Court Division of the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas, where she presides over divorce and custody-related cases. Prior to taking the bench, Judge Tate Wilborn spent nearly 20 years as an attorney, primarily in criminal practice as an assistant district attorney an assistant United States attorney, and as a partner at the law firm of Montgomery, McCracken, Walker, and Rhodes. Judge Tate Wilborn served as the Senior Director of the Office of Career Planning at Temple University Beasley School of Law, and as an adjunct professor of the law school's Federal Criminal Practice Seminar. Judge Tate Wilborn community involvement includes board member, youth action, board equity officer, Philadelphia VIP, assistant secretary, Clifford Scott Green chapter of the National Bar Association's Judicial Council, University of Pennsylvania's American Inn of Court, Montgomery Bar Association, former advisory board member, Barristers Association of Philadelphia, National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Pennsylvania chapter, and the Delaware Valley chapter of the Links Incorporated. She has volunteered with Philadelphia Reads, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and the Montgomery Bar Association Civics Education Program. She currently supervises interns from the Crystal Ray High School Work-Study Program in her courtroom 2 days per week. As an USA judge, Tate Wilborn was involved in the federal supervision to aid the Reentry Court Program, which assists participants in successfully reintegrating into society after serving federal prison sentences. Judge Tate Wilborn has been recognized as a Woman of Distinction honoree by the Philadelphia Business Journal, a Justice Juanita Kidd Stout Woman of Distinction by the Barristers Association, and received the Honorable Horace A. Davenport Award from the Montgomery Bar Association. Judge Tate is an associate minister at the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church in Philadelphia. She earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science cum laude from Spelman College in Atlanta and a Juris Doctor from Northeastern University School of Law in Boston. At this time, I would like to ask our moderator, the Honorable A. Nicole Tate Wilborn, to come forward.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Or I guess it's still morning, huh? Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for taking, good morning. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy weekend to come and be with us this morning to recognize the importance of civics education and judicial education and understanding how our courts work. And our hope, as you've heard from, so exciting, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, right? And then Justice Dougherty. We've had heavy hitters already. Amazing. But what they have both said to all of us is that take what we learned today, take what you hear today, and take it out. Take it to at least 5 people. We know that we have a judicial election coming up, and we know that in Pennsylvania we have elections how often? Every 6 months, that's right. And so our next general election is coming up on November 4th. So you can take this information, we hope, and use it as you formulate what you're going to do when you go to the ballot box or do your mail-in ballot on November 4th, because we know everybody in this room is already ready to vote, right? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a brief bit of the bios of the amazing panelists that you're going to hear from today. And we have a wealth of knowledge that you are about to hear from, of experience in all areas. And so I'm excited to introduce them. So as I'm going to do it this way, as I read their bio, if they could just start to make their way up to the panel, that would be great. And now I'm going to put on my ocular assistance here, if you don't mind. We're going to start with Morgan Robinson, the president of the League of Women Voters of Philadelphia. A highly motivated professional with a strong background in nonprofit work and a passion for civic engagement, Ms. Robinson's experience spans various organizations from children's education to healthcare advocacy, utilizing her critical strengths in program management, community outreach, communication and collaboration, and fundraising. She has executed small to large-scale programming, worked with diverse groups to foster community cohesion, and spearheaded multi-million-dollar contributions through capital campaigns for the Please Touch Museum, Girl Scouts of Eastern Pennsylvania, and the American Cancer Society. In addition to this role, she is also the Associate Director of Foundation Relations at American Association for Cancer Research. She recently served as President for Young Involved Philadelphia, a member of the 2022-2023 Buckholz Fellowship Cohort, as well as the 2024 PEW Emerging Leaders Cohort. She has degrees from Temple University, a Bachelor of Business Administration from the Fox School of Business, and a Master of Science from the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management. Morgan Robinson, good morning. President Judge T. Francis Shields, President Judge of the Municipal Court of Philadelphia. He was born and raised in Northeast Philadelphia. He brings a unique background to his role in the municipal court. He began his career in the trades as a member of the Sprinkler Fitters Union Local 692, where he served on the executive board and contract negotiating committee. While working full-time, he earned a BS in Industrial Relations from St. Joseph's University and a JD from Temple University Law School. For 25 years before taking the bench, he practiced law, representing individuals, unions, corporations, and government agencies in diverse legal matters. Appointed to the municipal court in 2012 and later elected to full terms, he has presided over thousands of cases across criminal and civil divisions. He was elected by his colleagues as president judge in January of 2024. Judge Stephanie Sawyer of the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas is a dedicated public servant, passionate advocate for justice, and leader in Philadelphia's legal community. She currently serves in the criminal trial division of the Court of Common Pleas in Philadelphia. Before taking the bench, she spent nearly 2 decades as a private attorney, tirelessly fighting for her clients and ensuring that every person, regardless of background, received fair and equal treatment under the law. Her firsthand experience in criminal defense, civil rights, and advocacy has shaped her judicial philosophy, which is justice must be fair, accessible, and focused on rehabilitation and not punishment. Beyond the courtroom, she is the founder and board chair of the Sentencing Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to criminal justice reform, fair sentencing, and reentry support for returning citizens. Although she was born in Queens, New York, Philadelphia has been her home since childhood. She attended Masterman and Philadelphia High School for Girls. Girls High in the house. Her undergraduate and law degrees are from Temple University. Prior to serving on the Court of Common Pleas, Judge Sawyer served on the Municipal Court of Philadelphia pursuant to an appointment of the Pennsylvania State Senate in 2014. Catherine Hicks is the president of the NAACP Philadelphia branch. She was raised in the Mount Airy section of Philadelphia and received her education in the public school system. She furthered her education at LaSalle University, where she majored in communications. She later married and joined her then husband as co-founder of HAD, Hicks Dry Cleaning Association and Impress Dry Cleaners, where they owned and successfully operated 4 successful dry cleaning establishments in the Philadelphia area. She later became employed by some of the region's largest healthcare providers, HHMA and Keystone Mercy, where she was able to fine-tune her communication skills. And in 2012, she joined the Philadelphia Sunday Sun as public relations consultant, where she established new relationships with businesses, social and political affiliates through community and social events. She also developed PR strategies for promotion and marketing of new and existing clients and established stories of interest to promote the expansion of overall readership and web traffic of the Sun. In addition, she was co-producer of the weekly radio news show Freedom Quest, hosted by the late J. Wyatt Mondesire, who was also founder and publisher of the Sunday Sun. In 2015, she took over as publisher and co-owner of the Sunday Sun after Mr. Mondesire's untimely death. In July 17, 2021, she was elected president of the Philadelphia branch of the NAACP, only the second female to hold that position. In addition to the NAACP, Catherine devotes her spare time to a lot of organizations, I'll tell you. The African American Chamber of Commerce, the Pennsylvania Democratic State Party, Pen and Pencil Club, National Press Club, Philly Cam, the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, Philadelphia Film Society, Philadelphia Black Public Relations Society, Philadelphia Community of Leaders, Black Women's Leadership Council, the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels, and the National Federation of Black Veterans Network. And finally, we have Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice Daniel McCaffrey. Justice McCaffrey is the proud son of Irish immigrants from Belfast, Northern Ireland. He was born and raised in Philadelphia, graduated from Father Judge High School, and upon graduation, he joined the United States Army and served with the 1st Cavalry Division in Fort Hood, Texas, as a Cavalry Scout. He was selected to attend the prestigious United States Military Academy at West Point Preparatory School. He attended Temple University, receiving his BA, and Temple Law School with his JD. He served as an assistant district attorney in the Major Trials Unit of Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, later joined Friedman, Schuman, PC in Montgomery County, and became a partner of that firm in 2000, and eventually chaired the firm's commercial litigation department and served on its management committee. In 2013, he was elected to the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas. We're going to use Justice McCaffrey today to educate us on a lot of the branches of the judiciary because he has experience. So he started in the Court of Common Pleas in 2013, presided over hundreds of jury trials and thousands of bench trials, pre and post-trial motions. He was then elected to the Pennsylvania Superior Court in 2019 and then to the Supreme Court in 2023. He was also appointed to serve on the Pennsylvania Court of Judicial Discipline. He remains actively involved in civic and community affairs, including serving as a board member of Self-Help Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation, Inc., volunteer to the Father Judge Board of Advisors, and coach of the Father Judge High School rugby team. We don't stop doing our work in the community, right, Justice McCaffrey? He's a proud father of 2 daughters, a Philadelphia public school teacher, and also a senior at Temple University. So let's welcome all of our panelists. I really want us to then get really into the meat of what we're here for today. So if you don't mind, I'm also going to give our special thanks to everyone who worked very hard to get this program here today. First of all, Elaine Tomlin, the Board of Trustees of the Free Library. This is a hard-working woman. She kept us on our P's and Q's, and so thank you, Elaine, for inviting us all to be here today. Veronica Brito, where are you again, Veronica? Another hardworking lady. And Lorraine Johnson, Adult Services and Programs. The Free Library Audio and Visual and Security teams, thank you so much. WHYY Bridging Block Program, National Constitution Center, and the National Council, thank you, of Negro Women Philadelphia Chapter. Thank you all as well. And we know we have at least one other judge joining us today, Judge Jackie Frazier Lyde of the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas. Are there any other judges with us? Any others? So we want to just thank you all and welcome all of our dignitaries, but all of you all. Everybody here is important, and we just thank you for being here today. All right, so with that, I'm going to get right into our discussion. So I'm going to give you just a quick, broad overview to get ready for our panelists to give us the deep dive into our education. So what do we want you to take away? We're going to give you a little bit of a history lesson, so if you want to get out a pen and paper, that would be good. If you don't, it's okay. But as Justice Dougherty told us, the Pennsylvania court system is actually older than our federal court system. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about the history of both the state and federal courts, because we're going to touch on both. The Judiciary Act of 1722 actually is what established the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. The Pennsylvania Constitution of 1776 established the courts of sessions, the courts of common pleas, and the orphans court in each county. Pennsylvania Constitution of 1790 then grouped counties into judicial districts. For example, Philadelphia is the 1st judicial district, and my county of Montgomery is the 38th judicial district. In 1895, the Superior Court was created, and then by way of the Pennsylvania Constitution of 1968, the Commonwealth Court was created, a very unique court to our country. And so as Justice Dougherty also told us, and if we had it up on the screen, you would see this in a much bigger form, but the way the Pennsylvania court structure is like a triangle. And so each of these folks, our jurists, is going to explain in more detail about these courts. But we start with our lower courts. They call them the minor courts, but they really don't do minor work. They do significant work, because anytime you encounter a court or a judge, it doesn't feel minor, if anybody's had that experience, right? So that starts in Philadelphia. It's called the municipal court. And then in the other counties, it's the magisterial district courts. And Judge Shields is going to tell us about that when we get to him. And then you go up to the courts of common pleas, our courts of general jurisdiction and trials. Then if you don't like your decision with the Court of Common Pleas, you go up to the Pennsylvania Superior Court for an appeal. Then that's where our Commonwealth Court also sits sort of in a sister type of fashion. And Justice McCaffrey is also going to explain that. I don't know if it was on your list, but you're ready for that, right? All right. And then our final stop for Pennsylvania is the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, where we have 7 justices, including Justice Dougherty and Justice McCaffrey and their 5 other colleagues. Now, when we talk about the federal system, the Judiciary Act of 1789 established, in general, the federal judicial system. But it was not, it built out what was created in Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution, which primarily at that time focused just on the Supreme Court. And so the structure generally of what we have here in the federal system, and I'm going to start lower up, is the United States Magistrate Courts, and then you go up to the United States District Courts, and in the country we have 94. Sitting in Philadelphia, we have the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, because in Pennsylvania, we have 3 federal district courts, the Eastern, the Middle, and the Western districts. So across the country, there are a total of 94. And then going up, again, to that appeal status, we have the United States Courts of Appeals, and there are 13 in the country. This area is part of this Third Circuit Court of Appeals. And then going up the appeal is at the top of the food chain again, where Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson sits, is the United States Supreme Court, or some folks call it SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, right? It means the same thing. And so again, we know that there are 9 justices on that court. There are also some other specialty courts, but that's the main focus of what we're going to talk about today. So enough of me, right? So is that enough, or now we can get into the meat, right? Okay. So what I'm going to have each of the judges do, we're going to start with President Judge Shields. If they're going to explain to us what each of these courts does, because what does it matter to know the structure if you don't know what the courts do, right? So Justice Shields, excuse me, I've elevated you.
I'll take it.
President Judge Shields, if you could talk to us about the municipal court and the magisterial district courts, what do they do?
Okay, you referred to.
Yeah, turn your microphone on. There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So with regard to the Philadelphia Municipal Court, you referred to us as the minor court. Right? I don't like that.
Right. That's right.
We're not a minor court, okay? I'm kind of just kidding, because everybody refers to the Philadelphia Municipal Court and the magisterial districts as the minor court. But think about this for a minute, okay? It's my opinion that the Philadelphia Municipal Court every day are making decisions that have a bigger impact and a more immediate impact on the lives of the people in this city than any other elected official in the city. When we have people come before us, just to give you a quick Cliff Notes version of our jurisdiction, we sit in landlord-tenant court on the civil side. We also sit in small claims court on the civil side. On the criminal side, we're in charge of the bail hearings. We're in charge of the magistrates that do the arraignment. We also handle all the preliminary hearings for both felonies and misdemeanors, and we handle the misdemeanor non-jury trials. So on every day, say in landlord-tenant court, day after day, case after case, we have countless cases, 30, 40 cases on our list in landlord-tenant court. We're dealing with situations where you may have some young woman who's raising 3 kids by herself, and she's a tenant in a property, and she has a landlord who sometimes the landlords are doing all the right things, at least according to the law and according to the regulations. But something happens with this lady, and she can't make her payment. Sometimes the landlords aren't doing the right things, and they're not fixing the place. There's a hole in the roof, and this woman's trying to put a roof over the head of her children and put put food on the table for her children. They come to court because the landlord is suing her because she didn't make last month's rent payment. Now, I've got to make a decision if I'm the judge who's sitting there in municipal court. And maybe that landlord, according to the rules, he did everything he was supposed to do. And he's got this landlord-tenant agreement that says she's supposed to pay. I've got to follow the law. But at the same time, that decision that I'm making, that may have the biggest impact on the lives of those children of any other decision that's made in their life. If I put them out if I make a decision that puts them out on the street, where are they going to go? So to suggest that we're a minor court and we're making minor decisions, they may seem like that to other people, but they don't seem like that to me. And I know they sure as hell don't seem like that to the people who are sitting in front of me. So that's just one example. And it's the same thing on the criminal side. You know, we're making decisions about holding people on bail, all right? Somebody comes in front of us, they're accused with a crime, haven't been convicted of anything yet. And it's our responsibility to decide whether or not to put them out on bail. Now, there's things we have to consider. We have to consider what's best for them, right? We have to consider their rights. I mean, we're making a decision whether or not to take away this individual's liberty. A liberty that, you know, our forefathers said it's an unalienable right, right? I'm going to make a decision whether or not to put him in a cell up on Street Road. On the other hand, I have the rights of the community to think about, right? If I put this individual back out on the street, is he going to be a danger to the community based on what he's done or what he's accused of doing? This is a major decision. It's a major decision in that person's life, and it's a major decision for the community. So that's why I don't take offense, but I get a little anxious when I hear people referring us to a minor court. And by the way, these are decisions. When we have serious judges who are making these decisions, they won't tell you, but these are decisions that keep people up at night, keep judges up at night, keep me laying in my bed staring at the ceiling wondering, did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing by the community? And did I do the right thing by that individual who's got rights of his own that I have an obligation to protect? So they're basically, you know, the analogy that I would draw, other than the triangle that Justice McCafferty mentioned and has been displayed here, I kind of look at us like we're like the emergency room doctors at the hospital, right? You come in with a big problem. You come in with a gunshot. You come in with serious injuries. We got to deal with you first. We got to get you stabilized. We got to make all those fundamental, quick, on-the-spot decisions that are going to save your life. Then after we take care of them, they move up to the Court of Common Pleas, and they're like the doctors on the floor that take care of you and help heal you and get you out of the hospital. Dan McCaffrey down there, he's like the brain surgeon up on the top floor, right? Him and Justice Dougherty, they're up on the top floor, and they're the ones that are really making the serious decisions that involve the outcome of the case. But I think that's, at least for me, it's a better analogy. And in terms of, you asked me about the judicial or the magistrates. In the other counties, they don't have a municipal court. They have magistrates. Fundamentally, they have the same jurisdiction as us. I think in Philadelphia Municipal Court, which is a unique court, we have some more authority, some more jurisdiction, but fundamentally, they serve the same practice and purpose that we do.
And the one difference, right, Judge Shields, is that in Philadelphia Municipal Court, you have to be a lawyer to run for that position.
That's right.
Whereas in the other counties, to be a magisterial district court, you do not have to be a lawyer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to be law trained and practicing lawyers in order to be elected as a judge in municipal court or in CP.
Right.
But the magisterial districts, as far as I know, don't necessarily have to be lawyers.
Now, if I could go off of one other thing that I think the audience might be interested in. You spoke about bail. We hear a lot about bail. And I know you talked about safety of the community versus looking at the crime. Can you give us a little bit of a deeper understanding of, as a judge, what criteria do you use to determine what is a fair bail for an individual, just generally speaking?
No, yeah. So first of all, you have to understand, we're making these decisions on bail not immediately, but almost immediately, right? Somebody gets arrested, they come before a magistrate, arraignment magistrate who makes a decision on bail. Subsequent to that, and that decision can be appealed automatically. And this is 24/7. This goes on all day. That decision can be appealed automatically, in which case if one or the other side appeals that decision, they make a phone call, they get myself or one of my other judges on the phone in the middle of the night or whenever it is, and they present their case to us over the phone, and we decide on that appeal whether to go along with the original decision or whether to change it in some way. And in addition to that, they have opportunities at the preliminary hearing or otherwise. They can file a motion to have their bail changed for one reason or another. And that comes before us. And you're making these decisions, you know, at a quick pace. I want to know everything. I want to know everything I can find out about that person.
Okay.
And sometimes the information that you get is limited. But I want to know, has this person failed to appear before? Have they had hearings that they didn't show up to before? Because that has an impact on whether or not, you know, I'm going to think about letting this guy out on the street when I'm pretty certain he's not going to show up again. Are there prior convictions? What kind of convictions? Depending on the nature of the crime. Where did this crime happen? Did it happen around the corner from where he lives? Because if he goes back out on the street, is it likely he's going to go right back to committing this crime? Or did it happen in Kensington and he lives out in Southwest? Any detail I could, where does he live? Who does he live with? What are his responsibilities? Does he have a job that he's going to lose if I keep him in jail? Does he have family that he's supporting? All these things, you want to try and gather as much information as you can before you make that decision, because you want that decision to be as informed as it can be. Now, sometimes you can get all this information, sometimes you can't, and then based on whatever you can get, then you've got to make the call. Typically, the two biggest concerns that you have, although they're not the only concerns, are one, is this individual, I keep saying, hey, I'm sorry, is he going to be a danger to the community? And two, is he going to show up at the next hearing so that the case can move forward and get resolved?
Okay, thank you, thank you. And in my defense, it's on the paper. I don't subscribe to it either. It's just on the paper.
I know.
Nevertheless, thank you, President Judge Shields. Now, yes. Judge Sawyer, you sit in the Court of Common Pleas, the same kind of court that I sit in, but in different counties. And we know that the Court of Common Pleas has different divisions. You're in the criminal division now, correct? Yes. Can you educate us on what the Court of Common Pleas does and what are the general different divisions?
Okay. Yeah. So the Court of Common Pleas, we take over after municipal court. I want to just piggyback also that there are bail hearings that happen at every level, right? You can ask for a modification of bail at any level, and those indeed are the criteria by which we use them. But for Court of Common Pleas judges, we're in the criminal court division, and we handle any case that has a felony attached to it. So if a person is arrested for misdemeanor, it stays in municipal court unless there's an appeal from the decision that was made in municipal court, and that appeal is handled in the Court of Common Pleas. Additionally, we do family court, which is support, custody, and divorce, because you're a family court, you're in a family division. And then there's also the civil division. And so the civil division is a little bit intricate, particularly in Philadelphia, because if the amount that's being requested is $50,000 or less, then there's a compulsory arbitration that you go to. So that's not going to be in front of a Court of Common Pleas judge. That's going to be in front of an arbitration panel. But any appeals from that arbitration panel will then come to the Court of Common Pleas, or any case where you're requesting more than $50,000. So if you're asking more than for $50,000, then it's automatically in the Court of Common Pleas, and that would be the civil division. So it's the civil division, it's the criminal division, and it's the family division.
Okay, thank you. Now, Justice McCaffrey, we told you were going to do some heavy lifting here. So
just before we start, I just
yes.
want to note, if I'm your brain surgeon, you're all in deep trouble. Okay?
So you've had the opportunity to be on the Court of Common Pleas, the Superior Court, and now the Supreme Court. And so, as I said, I'm going to throw in the Commonwealth Court. Can you explain to us each of the Commonwealth Court, the Superior Court, and the Supreme Court? How do they work?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And before I really get started, I wanted to kind of piggyback on what Nicole said earlier about Elaine Tomlin. I've known Elaine Tomlin for in excess of 20 years since we're at a civic event. She's really a Philadelphia civic treasure and a bit of an icon, both politically, socially, and I want to personally recognize her because I think it would be a crime, excuse the pun, for her contributions to go unrecognized. So just to answer the question in short form, it's really pretty simple. The Philadelphia Municipal Court, like the magisterial district justices, are, when we say minor judiciary, what we're talking about is they have limited jurisdiction. In the counties where we have magisterial district justices, and just so we are clear, there are 67 counties in Pennsylvania. When you run statewide, you visit every single one of them, okay? Number one, they have magisterial district justices. Like municipal court, their function is to hear preliminary hearings on felony matters, and if the person's held for court at a preliminary hearing, they go up to the Court of Common Pleas. They also handle civil matters with a limited jurisdiction in the counties. I believe it's $10,000 to $12,500. Philadelphia Municipal Court's a little bit higher. In the Courts of Common Pleas, it's what's called the trial division. So the trial divisions in the Courts of Common Pleas are basically the workhorses. They're the ones that try the cases. They're the ones that interface with the public on the cases that are held for court. And then we have the individual, we call the intermediate appellate courts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, called the Pennsylvania Superior Court and the the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. While I was on the Court of Common Pleas in Philadelphia County, I was assigned to East Division and the Criminal Division, which is where Judge Sawyer is now. It's the busiest division one of the busiest divisions in the United States of America. I probably handled about 40, 50 jury trials a year. For those of you in Philadelphia, you will understand it as the East Division, which is Kensington, where unfortunately we have the ground zero of the opioid epidemic, if not in Philadelphia, just in Philadelphia, it's probably in the country. The intermediate appellate courts are the Superior Court, which is the busiest intermediate appellate court in the United States of America. Trial judge's function is essentially to apply the rules of criminal procedure or civil procedure to evidentiary rules to kind of create that even playing field for both sides to present their case. The Superior Court and the Commonwealth Court are what's called error-correcting courts. So when I was on the Superior Court, when an appeal comes up from the Commonwealth Court or Common Pleas Court, our job is to scour the record to see if a mistake was made, and if so, we have to fashion the appropriate remedy. About 94% of all cases in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that go to the Superior Court are affirmed, which means the Common Pleas Court judge did not make a mistake. Out of those other 6%, some are remanded to the court to to fix the mistake. Other ones are an outright reversal. The Commonwealth Court, as Nicole mentioned beforehand, is a specially created court and was created out of the 1968 Constitutional Convention in Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth Court is also an intermediate appellate court, but if you think about it, the Commonwealth Court has limited jurisdiction in that they only handle appeals dealing with what's called a governmental entity. In other words, if the city of Philadelphia or the township of Montgomery or Montgomery County or any of the townships are a party, school boards, any kind of governmental entity, if they are a party at the Common Pleas Court level, those appeals will go right to the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. There's 9 judges on the Commonwealth Court elected statewide, and on the Pennsylvania Superior Court, of which I sat until 2023, there are 15 judges elected statewide across Pennsylvania. Supreme Court is, once again, a very limited. We only take about 100 cases a year. The Supreme Court's function is everybody has a right to an appeal from a decision of the Court of Common Pleas to either the Superior Court or to the Commonwealth Court. Nobody has a right to appeal to the Supreme Court. We operate with what's called petitions for aliquotter. An aliquotter is a fancy way to say, please review the decision of the Superior Court or the Commonwealth Court. We have law clerks. I've got 4 law clerks that are brilliant. I tell them all the time, my job is to make the decision. Your job is to make me look really good getting there. And they do, usually. They will scour the aliquotter petitions to see whether or not it's something we're going to take. An aliquotter is only granted in very limited circumstances, and the circumstances that we grant aliquotter are usually constitutional questions, or if we feel that a prior decision needs to be revisited, or there's a split in the jurisdictions regarding differences of opinion between different Superior Court or Commonwealth Court panels on a particular area of law that we want to clarify. So each year, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court takes roughly grants about 100 or so petitions for aliquotter. We render about 60 decisions a year. We just finished up this week in Philadelphia where we had about 16 cases over a 3-day session. I will tell you right now, when I was on the Superior Court, the arguments are limited to about 15 minutes aside. We handle about 45 cases on each panel, and they sit in panels of three judges. Supreme Court, it's unlimited. I felt really bad for the first guy on Wednesday because he started at 9:30 and he was still getting cross-examined by the justices at 12:30, 1 o'clock. At one point, I thought the guy was going to jump out the window. But the cases that we handle tend to be very, very, very intricately involved. And I want to follow up on one thing that Justice Dougherty mentioned beforehand. We also handle cases of any kind of constitutional interpretation under the Pennsylvania Constitution. If you can think of the judiciary, think of it almost like railroad tracks. The federal system and the state system. We run parallel to one another. Federal courts have limited jurisdiction in that it's got to be a federal question with diversity of citizenships. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court handles all cases regarding Pennsylvania law. So we can provide greater protections than the United States Constitution, but we cannot provide less than the United States Constitution. Think of the United States Constitution as the floor. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court is the ceiling.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So can you, on that vein, Justice McCaffrey, you're not done yet. Can you?
Sorry. I'm trying to hand it over.
One more question. There are times, though, in which a state case then gets to the federal courts, and sometimes they get to the United States Supreme Court. Can you give us generally an idea of how that would happen? Would they have to come to your court first and get some sort of decision that they don't like, and then they file a writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court? How does that work?
Almost always. There's got to be an implication of a federal right that's being implicated by a Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision. The one example I will tell you, I actually, when I was on the Superior Court, I was selected to sit on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court for one case. There was a case in Pennsylvania, I believe it was called Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Terrence Williams. Some of you may remember it. And this is just kind of I'll explain the situation, and it may kind of put it into perspective. Terrence Williams was convicted of a homicide, first-degree murder in the city of Philadelphia. The DA at the time was District Attorney Ron Castile. You may remember the name. Justice Castile subsequently was elected to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. This is why I'm kind of explaining it in these terms. Justice Castile, when he was the DA, signed the death warrant on the case. Then Mr. Williams had a direct appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court. And then he had what's called a PCRA filing, which is a Pennsylvania Post-Conviction Relief Act, that Justice Castile actually heard while he was the justice on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. He was denied his direct right of appeal. He was denied the PCRA while Justice Castile sat on it. Justice Castile also was the DA at the time who signed the warrant. The United States Supreme Court took that case up and said that was a conflict. Justice Castile never should have sat on that particular case because he participated in the underlying proceedings, and it was a federal issue. That case was then remanded by the United States Supreme Court back to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court for decision. 3 of the justices on the Supreme Court also sat on Mr. Williams's PCRA denial. So myself, Judge Alice Beck-DeBow, and one other judge of the Pennsylvania Superior Court at the time were asked to take their place and sit on that particular case. So that gives you an idea of the type of case that would be taken up by the United States Supreme Court. If it impacts on somebody's constitutional rights, federal constitutional rights, or civil rights, those kind of cases, they may have what's called, coextensive jurisdiction.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Now,
Oh, can I say one other thing?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
whatever the Supreme Court justice wants to do, right?
Really?
Yeah.
It's,
Yes, sir.
it's not that good. I just wanted to mention something. We all heard Justice Dougherty speak. Justice Dougherty is a friend and a mentor. He trained me in the DA's office. That's how long we've known each other. We talk about the power in Pennsylvania, and the power is at the ballot, right? We all vote. Everybody here, I'm kind of preaching to the choir because if you're here, you're civic-minded, you're engaged. We elect judges in Pennsylvania. We elect judges to a 10-year term. 3 justices in Pennsylvania this year are up for retention because we go 10 years and then it's an up or down vote. Justice Dougherty, Justice David Wecht, and Justice Christine Donahue this year are up for retention. So I want to mention that to everybody because I think it's important for you to focus on the importance of retaining fair, independent justices and judges, because as we keep talking about, you want fair, you want impartial justices and judges across the board. These 3 justices are up for retention this year. Please don't forget them, and don't forget any of the judges that are up for retention this year, because if not, you run the risk of having partisans elected to these particular positions, and that's a very, very dangerous impact on our judicial system. So
Thank you. Thank you for that, Justice McCaffrey. And that's a perfect segue. Thank you. Into our conversation with Morgan Robinson. Pennsylvania, as Justice McCaffrey has talked about and others, is one of the few states in the country that still elects its judges by partisan elections. One of the many organizations that's engaged in the work of voter registration, education, and engagement, and ensuring that elections are fair is the League of Women Voters. So, Morgan, can you tell us more about the League of Women Voters and your organization's role in elections in Pennsylvania nationwide? Talk to us.
Definitely. As everyone said, thank you so much for having me. Also, it's really great to be on a panel with a bunch of Temple alumni. My father went to Temple, I went to Temple, so I love being with some owls at all times. TU.
just so we're clear, when I talk about Temple Law School, I refer to it as the Harvard of North Broad Street. So thank you.
It is. It is.
Incidentally,
it is.
we actually went to Temple together.
But essentially, the League of Women Voters was an organization founded in 1920. And at the time, it was founded to give newly enfranchised women, white women, who had the right to vote, the leadership, the opportunity to really gather them to understanding what this new right meant. And so it has evolved over its over 100-year history. We have over 750 league chapters throughout the country, and within our state, we have 30. A little over 30, roundabout. And so what our local league does in our new formation, we're relatively new. We've been around since 2018 in our new format. And what we do is not only voter education, which is so, so, so important, but also being the voice for some of those voters. So one of the things we did do, and this was before I was a part, and we went to the PA Supreme Court because we saw, as well as other PA voters saw, that the 2011 maps were not fair. It did not go towards the nonpartisanship that we support. It was not right. So in 2018, we did go to the PA Supreme Court to say, hey, we don't like this isn't right, what do we do? And so with the PA Supreme Court, there was, I believe it was a remedial map that was created, and that's what helped be more fair and equal for all Pennsylvanians when it came to voting in 2018. And one of the biggest things for the league especially is not just voter education, but focusing on the diversity, equity, inclusion of our voters. You know, when you turn 18 now, if you're going to the DMV, to PennDOT, you're registered to vote. And I just found out that if you don't, because it was a while since I've registered to vote, it's been years now, that you are registered independent if you do not choose a party. And we have closed elections, closed primaries in the state of Pennsylvania, something the league is trying to open up and change so that all our registered voters have that right to vote at the primary. So in May and November, you're voting in both. You have that say.
What does that mean, closed
So closed
elections for our
primaries,
What does that mean?
we have essentially means that if you are not Republican or Democrat, which are the two-party system that we mainly have in the state of Pennsylvania and especially in Philadelphia, you are unable to vote for a particular person. So if John Doe is running for, mayor, I'm just going to say mayor because that was one of our biggest ones recently. If John Doe is running for mayor and John Doe is a Democrat, but you're an independent and you did not change your registration before election day and before the deadline, you are unable in our May primary to vote for John Doe. You will have to wait until November to cast that vote for John Doe. Now, the biggest thing is John Doe may not make it to November because that May election, and we recently had a very busy May election, there can be a lot of people on the ballot. And it's so important that all these folks were to represent us. each and every person that was on our mayoral election in May was to represent Philadelphians. And each Philadelphian who was registered to vote and everything up to date should have had the equal right to vote for those people. And so that's our closed primaries, the league. We run under literally the national, the state, and then Philadelphia chapter. So at the state level, we are working really, really hard to change this, to make sure we have open primaries. And I will say that is way above what I normally do, so I don't know all the intricacies of it, but it is something that the league will really work towards. And what we'll do is, especially if we have voters who come to us and say, hey, I feel like my rights have been violated as a voter, I feel like something isn't fair. We are lucky enough that, like I said, we have the national and the state league. We can go to those folks who, a lot of them are lawyers, and ask them, is this something we can support? Is there an amicus brief we can sign? Is there, who do we go to? What do we do? How do we collaborate to make sure our constituents within the city of Philadelphia, their rights are protected, their voices are heard, and they are able to vote?
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just,
Sure.
you told me I can do whatever I want.
Yes,
I just want to point something out, just as a follow-up to what I just said, and then I'll shut up, I promise. I just mentioned Justice
Heard that
Dougherty,
before.
Justice Wecht, and Justice Donahue for retention. That case that she referred to, the League of Women Voters case, was one of the most important cases in Pennsylvania over the last 10 years. Anybody who's campaigned around Pennsylvania, anybody who's paying attention, understands Pennsylvania's a purple state, right? It's very closely divided by registration. All of our elections are usually within 1 or 2 points. Prior to the League of Women Voters case, which was challenging under the Pennsylvania Constitution, the gerrymandered districts, there were 13 Republicans elected across Pennsylvania and only 5 Democrats. Those 3 justices that I just mentioned were on that panel that basically determined that's a violation of Pennsylvania voting rights. And they were the ones who overturned it and put in a new map, which resulted in 9 Democrats and 9 Republicans, which fairly and accurately represented kind of how Pennsylvania looks. Because of that decision, Justice Dougherty, Justice Wecht, and Justice Donahue right now are under attack by partisans seeking to have them removed from the Supreme Court in this retention effort. So when we talk about fair, independent, and fearless justices, that's the kind of decision we're talking about. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So now another organization that has had a long history of engaging courts to advocate for the rights of individuals, particularly African Americans, in areas such as education, voting rights, and in ending discriminatory practices in public institutions is the NAACP. In fact, we know that the first African American Supreme Court justice, the person that Justice Jackson stands on, is Thurgood Marshall, who was actually one of the most prominent and successful lawyers for the NAACP. So, Catherine, can you tell us a little bit more about the NAACP and their historical role in engaging courts to ensure the rights of Americans in our country and in Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. Elaine, as always, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. The NAACP is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It's the oldest civil rights organization around. It was founded in 1909. 2 of its founding members is Ida B. Wells, that you may know, and also W.E.B. Du Bois. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People is charged with advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves. And that is, our charge is really looking out for the African American community, but also to make sure that our rights are being heard, our rights are being seen. One of the NAACP charges in Philadelphia is to make sure that voting rights, the rights of all of our community is known. We are a branch of the national. So the Philadelphia is a branch of the national, it's an arm. We have branches throughout over 50 states. Every city has an NAACP branch, and the Philadelphia is one of them. So what we try to do is make sure that all of your civil rights, educational rights are being heard. And anything that you need when it comes to that, our branch stands for. So NAACP is an advocate, is a civil rights organization and an advocate for those who cannot speak for themselves.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to throw this to any of the judges. There's a lot of questions that are out there in the space of conversation. And I want to start this conversation with something that Justice Jackson and Justice Dougherty talked about, is how it plays with the fact that in Pennsylvania, our judges are elected, right? And Morgan talked about how we have basically the Democratic and Republican Party, some independents, and we know we have some other groups there. But how does a judge who has to run on a political ticket, generally Democrat or Republican, then kind of turn it off when it comes to taking the bench? Because what do we hear? We hear for a federal judge, if a decision is made, it's referred to who appointed them. They're an Obama judge, they're a Reagan judge, or whomever. If you're a state court judge, they may look you up and say, oh, you ran on the Democratic ticket or the Republican ticket. For the actual role of the judge, how do you balance those two, or how do you make the switch, and how does it impact or not what you do on the bench? Anybody can answer, yeah.
I guess I'll chime in on that. It is about the objective of getting elected, right? Because here in Philadelphia, there are a lot of folks that are on the Democratic and the Republican ticket when they actually are moving forward with that. So it's more of, because we're supposed to be nonpartisan, the judges can run on a Democratic or a Republican ticket. And what that means is, in Philadelphia, what that means is people that are identifying as Republicans are actually running on Democratic tickets. So there's not that same kind of delineation between the partisan behavior as you would think traditionally, right? When you're running for judge, typically in Philadelphia, quite a few people I know are Republicans and have been Republicans, but they ran on the Democratic ticket. Now, it is more about the process of getting elected. And if you remember, actually, if you look at the Judicial Code of Conduct, right? There are 4 canons in the Judicial Code of Conduct. Canon 4 governs what we're allowed to do as it relates to political activities. And so generally, there's a 4.1 is a general prohibition from any kind of political activity, rather it's a speech for a political organization or a particular candidate. Not allowed to do that, except unless it's under 4.2, 3, and 4 that speak about the process of becoming a judge. So that if you are seeking a judicial appointment, there are some exceptions to that general prohibition under 4.1. If you are running for the seat initially, there are exceptions to the prohibition on 4.1. And if you're up for retention, which, by the way, I happen to be up for retention, along with Justice Dougherty and DeBow and Weck. So, which is a very different look. Rather, it is statewide, which, by the way, Justice McCaffrey is correct. If you are running statewide, you have to get to all 67 counties, which is why that is not something I aspire to do. But at any rate, that's my thought process on that. There are some prohibitions. It's a general prohibition with some exceptions for when you are either going for retention to maintain your seat, going to elected to get your seat, or if you're looking for an appointment. But with other than those exceptions, we're really not supposed to be involved in it. So it doesn't matter if you're on the Democratic or Republican side, because it's not supposed to affect any of your decisions.
So talk to us about that. How do you turn that off when it comes time to take the bench and do the work that you do?
Like what every judge does when they hit the bench, being a judge is a lot about who you are as a person, right? And so we interpret the law. Of course, we have the guidance of precedents. We have the guidance of statutes that have been passed in the respective legislature. But how you interpret them really are about who you are. And this might be a little controversial, but I don't think that it does get turned off, right? I think that a person is who they are, and how they interpret certain words and put those words together and then apply them to the lives of people reflect who they are. And so that's why I said you're supposed to not do this and you're supposed to not do that. But you know, the neuroscience of decision making tells us that it is impossible, right? The neuroscience, just in a quick blurb, the neuroscience of decision making is a course that I took in judicial training that literally changed the way I looked at things, because it's what happens to every human being, period. So the human brain can absorb things in the millions, right? The hat on judge's head here, the bag here. You know, you can absorb things in the millions in your subconscious mind, but in your conscious mind, you can only work on them in the hundreds. And the thing one chooses to work on in the hundreds are out of the things in the millions, but they're the things that you gravitate towards normally. So it's really all about who that human being is, which brings us back to everybody in terms of civic engagement. Rule number one, do your homework. Find out who's running. Find out the things that they've done in their life. Find out the decisions that they've made in their personal and their professional life. Figure out who they are as a human being, because that is going to guide what their decisions look like.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Judge Shields, did you want to add to that?
I sort of agree with Judge Sawyer here. Actually, I almost always agree with Judge Sawyer, but I think she's right in that all of us are human beings, and therefore, when you look at us as candidates, you're going to look at the whole person. Where do we, you know, where do we come from? What's our background? How that all affects the way we handle ourselves in the courtroom. That's certainly true. On the other side, if we're talking about what we do in terms of disengaging ourselves from the political process that we have to participate in once we get on the bench, I think it's the same as what we have to do in terms of our own personal outlook. Oftentimes we'll get cases that come in front of us. We're human beings, and at 11 o'clock the night before, I saw on the news this guy do, you know, a video of this guy committing what looks like to be a horrible crime, or the guy comes in front of me that day and he just, you know, from a personal point of view, he looks like a despicable person. But once I put that robe on and walk out of the robing room, that I have to forget all that. When I walk into that courtroom and take that bench, I have to make my decision based on the evidence that's put forth by the prosecutor and the other evidence that's put forth by the defense counsel and everything that happens in that room. That has to be the basis of my decision. Whether personally, in the back of my mind, I might think, boy, this guy looks like horrible, or this was a horrible crime, or I don't like this district attorney, you know, or I don't like this public defender. All that has to be put aside. My decision has to be made based on the evidence that prosecutor puts into the record, and then the subsequent evidence that's put forth by the defense. And it's probably the hardest part of the job, to be quite frank, because, like I said, we're all human beings. We all have, you know, misconceptions or bias or whatever. We have to work on that every day. It's not something that there's no pill. There's no quick fix solution.
Right.
You got to work on that every day.
Right. Thank you for that. So I want to take that, thank you, and I want to press it into the same conversation, but a little bit of a different direction. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, Judge Shields. We have, you know, so much access to so many things, not just TV anymore, right? We have social media, things, people are videotaping things right on the street, and et cetera. And then what ends up happening is folks are giving their opinion on that, let's just say crime or whatever that situation is, right? We have certain courts that allow the cameras in the courtroom. So we're following trials in New York and different ones. I won't name particular cases, right? And then there becomes the conversation of the court of public opinion, right? And so then there becomes a plethora of, folks giving their opinion on how they think the case should go, right? And that ends up on social media and ends up out sometimes marches and what have you. How does a judge separate or wrestle with the court of public opinion with your oath to be objective, fair, and unbiased and keep it in the courtroom? You want to start with, okay, Justice McCaffrey or whomever?
I'll deal with that pretty quickly. We don't. A judge's job is never, ever, ever to worry about public opinion, because that's not what we do. Justice Antonin Scalia, love him or hate him, said it best. If you're a judge and you're happy with every decision you've made, you're in the wrong line of work. A judge's job is to follow the law. The General Assembly is elected by you to be a state representative, a city council person. Their job is to make the law. Their job often reflects public opinion. Our job is to interpret the General Assembly's intent. A politician said it years ago, there's no Republican way or Democratic way to fix a streetlight. And that goes with the law. There's no Democratic way or Republican way to apply the law. Your lived experiences, that's always going to factor in, as Judge Sawyer and Judge Shields just mentioned. Your lived experiences of who you are, that always impacts on your decisions. But the fact of the matter is, we have to put aside public opinion, and we have to make the hard call at the most difficult time. I can assure everybody listening and everybody out there in the audience, I served on a Superior Court with 8 Republicans, I think it was, and 7 Democrats. Politics and your political party registration never, in any case I handled, which were in the thousands, ever factored into what was never even discussed. And I sat with Republicans from rural areas. Supreme Court of Pennsylvania right now, there's 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Justice Mundy and Justice Brobson. We never discuss politics, and it never factors into our decision-making. And almost all of our decisions are close to majority, well, they're all majority, but they're either close to unanimous or maybe sometimes somebody dissents, but when the dissent happens, it's usually about the process. It's never about politics. So I can assure everybody out there, politics doesn't factor into what we do, because as Justice Dougherty said at the outset, when you put that black robe on, you put your registration aside.
I'd like to also add one more thing too, about the court of public opinion, and without sounding condescending, let's be honest, right? We have been required to make our decisions based in law. How much of the public knows the law? Right? So when you're looking at the voice of the court of public opinion, it's not based upon the things that we're required to base our decisions.
Okay, thank you for that. Similarly, we know, again, Justice Dougherty talked to us about the branches. We have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, and we have the judicial branch. So in Pennsylvania, our executive would be our governor, and our legislative would be our General Assembly, and then, of course, there's us in the judiciary. How do the 3 interplay in terms of what is the role of the courts when it comes to legislation or an order that comes from the executive that might come before the court? What is that versus independence from the other 2 branches? Shall I rephrase the question? Here's what I mean. Judicial branch has to be independent from the executive and the legislative, right? But we're also may be in the case of interpreting, but we have to apply the law, right? Or interpret the law. Is there any form of pressure that comes from either of those sides, or what is our role independent from those 2? Does that
Aren't we
make sense?
seeing some of that today with the situation at the federal level?
I'm just talking about how you deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm just
On our level,
no, but this is what we need. This is what they want to understand, right? What is really supposed to be happening?
Let me just say this. What I believe is supposed to be happening is pretty much what Justice McCaffrey said, right? With the same thought process of the court of public opinion, right? That is an opinion and a decision that should not play a factor in it. To the extent that the legislative branch or the executive branch promulgates legislation that becomes the body of law that we have to base our decisions on, to the extent that legislation is created and what that legislative intent looks like to interpret the words that are in the statute. Sometimes you go to the legislative intent. To the extent that that is the body of authority upon which we base our decisions, yes, we must follow what that intent was and what that law says. But the political nature of how those laws are promulgated, right? That a game of politics, if you will, is not something that it has any effect on our decision at all. Not supposed to, right? The only thing that has an effect on our decision is the final result after the legislative process concludes and culminates into the legislation that's passed, and therefore part of the body of law that we have to base our decisions on.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
Did you want to add to that, Judge?
No,
Shields?
no, as I was pointing out earlier, we've seen some of this recently on the federal level with the executive branch trying to push through laws or rules or regulations or orders, and ultimately they get appealed to the federal judicial system, and then those judges are making the decisions, and it's, we've seen an awful lot where the executive branch is being put back, and the rulings are going against them because the judges have found that they don't have the authority to do that. So I mean that's the way it's being handled. We don't see that much of that at the local level, certainly not in my court. But I mean that's the way it's handled. That's the way it should be handled.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so we are in the phase where we are wrapping up this panel, but if I can ask a couple of more questions. Morgan or Catherine, can you tell us about how your organization, and I think Morgan, you kind of alluded to this, ends up in front of a court? You mentioned the 2018 case. How does the League of Women Voters decide when to take a case to court?
So, as I mentioned before, we have our national league, our state league, and our local chapters. So, if it's something federal, I can't do that. The local league cannot take anything to federal court, anything to U.S. Supreme Court. That would come from our state level. Our national level. But we are allowed to bring things to them. And we are allowed to say, hey, we have issues, could you help us? And I think of it in this way, and I do apologize for this kind of analogy. I went to a Quaker school in the city. I think of it as we were taught, if we were in meeting for worship, before you stand up, you are to think about a couple prompts and questions. Does this pertain to you? Does this pertain to the people around you? How will this affect if you bring this message about? And essentially the league guides the local chapters into those questions. So if someone comes to us and says, I think my rights were violated with my mail-in ballot, for instance, and, the curing of our mail-in ballots in the city of Philadelphia, we are able to then go to our state league and say, we have these issues going on, more than one person has come to us, what's our next step? And they will guide us in that next step and what litigation looks like for us. We are lucky enough, being a nonprofit, it is all pro bono, so we do not pay for it at the league, but we will go through those steps. But literally, anyone can come to us, and I receive a lot of emails, anyone can come to us with an issue. And we encourage anyone to come with us with an issue because we are nonpartisan. We are not about sides. We are about the voter. We are about the people. So come to us with an issue, and I will do my due diligence to take the proper steps to make sure your issue is heard, and if it makes sense, to take it even further to court.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, can you, go ahead.
Yes,
Go ahead. Yes.
and the NAACP is very similar in the way that it handles cases, especially when it comes to voting rights or issues like that. We have the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. That is with our national organization. Again, the Philadelphia is a branch. We also have a state organization as well. When it comes to voting rights, or if you have issues feeling like you were discriminated against, or you had your civil rights impaired when you were going to vote or do whatever, we at the Philadelphia branch have a command center on every election day. Our office is open, so we take calls, we take issues, but we do similarly as the women's voting rights, which making sure that if there is an issue, It goes to the state, it also goes to the national. But if it's something that we can handle here, we actually have attorneys that work with us in our office to handle those as well.
Thank you. That's great to know. So as we have about 2 or 3 minutes left of this great discussion, have you all learned something today? Wonderful, wonderful. And I know that we had questions coming from the audience, but we do have a little bit of a time constraint, and I know that we've gotten some great information from all of our panelists. So I'd like to give each of you a minute or two to give us what you want us to take away. If there's something we didn't cover or something you want to reemphasize, if there's a message you could leave us with, what would that be? Starting with Morgan, and we're going to end with our Justice McCaffrey.
So I will say this, the resources are there, and to please use them. I'm a third generation Philadelphian. I used to go to on election day with my parents. My father was with the 29th Ward under Frank Oliver back in the day. We have such a strong city and we have such a strong voice, we should use it. And the League of Women Voters is here, all of the organizations, all of these judges, all of these people. It boils down to that. These are people who are here to support each other and help each other in our city. And for the League of Women Voters, we have vote411.com. It is a website that we use all over the country where we reach out to these judges, to these elected officials to ask them questions and get answers and have a nonpartisan website and resource hub for you to pull information on. So ahead of Election Day, ahead of filling out your mail-in ballot, you can be an informed voter. That is the only way to continue to make our great democracy work, is to be informed and educated voters and to use these resources that are at your fingertips.
Thank you. Judge Shields?
Yeah, there's something that I'd just like to mention real quick, and I'm sorry we don't have much more time because I'd like to get into it a little deeper with regard to the municipal court. There is a big movement, a big push these days for alternative courts, for diversionary programs. In fact, Justice Dougherty is the point man in implementing this huge summit in order to deal with behavioral health. And I'm looking forward to the results of that. But he's working really hard all over the state to put that together. Philadelphia Municipal Court has for years had multiple diversionary programs to try and deal with people who come into the justice system but have underlying problems that may be the cause of their coming into the justice program, as opposed to just being hardened criminals. Drug addiction comes to mind first and foremost. Mental health problems are growing by the day. We have a drug treatment program that's nationally recognized, and we've had it for over 20 years. We have a veterans court that deals with veterans who get into problems with the judicial process. We had Dawn Court that dealt with helping to work with people who are charged with prostitution. We have an accelerated misdemeanor program dealing with people who, maybe it's their first offense or it's a very minor offense. Can we find an alternative way to deal with them as opposed to putting them through the trial process, finding them guilty, and then they have a record that maybe we could put them in some other program that may help to deal with the problem that got them there to begin with. I could go on and on. We have at least 10 programs dealing with every underlying issue that we know of at this point. They're all excellent programs. They've all been there for a long time. And they're excellent because we have great judges who sit in those rooms and who implement those programs on a regular basis, and they're committed to the success of those programs. But also, and maybe even more importantly, because we have excellent staff, excellent administrators, we have excellent providers who participate in these programs to get these people the help that they need. And like I said, we have excellent judges. I wish I had the opportunity, because I could spend an hour or two just on our diversionary programs and the necessity of them and the success of them. One other thing I'd like to mention, my colleague, Judge Frazier Light, she was here earlier. I wish she was still here because she sits on the municipal court with me. Judge Sawyer, she sat on the municipal court with me previously. Now she's on the CP court. Both of them are up for retention, okay? We need judges who are smart. We need judges who are courageous. We need judges who are compassionate. We need judges who are strong enough to make the hard decisions despite what else they may think or what the public may think. Judge Sawyer and Judge Frazier lied. They check off every one of those boxes. So please, please go out. When you go out, keep them in mind when you're voting for retention. We can't, a vote against either one of them would be a vote against our court and a vote against this city. We need them. Don't let them go, okay? And one other thing about Judge Frazier lied that you may not know. She's got probably the best left hook in the city. Which she inherited from her father, the late, great Joe Frazier.
First, I want to say thank you very much, and we'll pay you later when we leave. Two things I want to say. Number one is yes, yes, yes. Vote, 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 right? I in no way mean to in any way denigrate the importance of those that are elected in the legislature and in the executive branches, but they create policy decisions that trickle down to people, right? Judges change your tomorrow. Judges change whether or not you have to urinate in a cup. Judges change whether or not you go home or you see your children or you get money to do whatever it is you need to do, right? So it is essential that we somehow raise the visibility and the importance of the public understanding to know who the person is. So that's my first thing. Second thing is, anybody who knows me, I can't have a mic without talking about the Sentencing Foundation. It's just not possible, right? The Sentencing Foundation is a nonprofit organization who is trying to change the paradigm on how judges sentence and supervise. There's a certain culture regarding judges that the public kind of genuflect and walk into a courtroom and they want to tell that judge what they think that judge wants to hear. And as long as that's happening, we're not hearing the truth. We're hearing what you think we want to hear, right? And in that kind of culture, judges are not required in the way I think makes sense to be public servants. We should not lord over the public. We should serve the public. And the Sentencing Foundation is the propagation of a program called resource-based sentencing and supervision, right? It is a program that I'm in the business of telling folks that, you know, you can't tell somebody to pull themselves up by the bootstraps when you know full well they ain't got no boots. Resource-based sentencing and supervision, it requires us to pass out the boots and make them pull themselves up. If I'm sentencing somebody with 2 possessions with intent to deliver, which we call PWIDs, in a 10th grade education, I can set my watch to his 3rd. Why are we waiting for that? Why are we not sentencing people that require them to address the root cause of the reason for the offense, right? Putting somebody in jail for 2 years, and then what happens when they come out? They're going to be worse off than when they went in. Instead, if you require them to do the hard work to change their own stars, they're not going to want to offend. And that's what the propagation of resource-based sentencing supervision is designed to address. And it is also designed to create that relationship between the judge and those who they judge in the subsequent status listings so that they know who that person is. Cookie cutter justice is no justice at all. It has to be designed for the person before you.
Thank you.
Yes, so what I would say is your voice is your vote, and your vote is your power. When you vote, it says something as to what you stand for. So it is very important that you go out and vote for, like they're saying, that what's coming up now with the judges. In your lifetime, you will probably not go before the President of the United States, and you probably will not go before the mayor unless something really, happens. But you may have a time that you have to go in front of one of these judges. So it is very important that you do your homework, that you look and see who is coming up for retention, who is being on the ballot to be elected, and make that choice. The NAACP, we work with a lot of these organizations when it comes to voting. We are an advocate for you, but you need to advocate for yourself as well, because when you vote, that is your voice and that is your power. So I would also say, join one of these civic organizations. The NAACP, again, is a very important organization that is very much needed now. It is needed so much with everything that is going on, but we need people. The power is in our voices, and the power is in us. So join these civic organizations, join the NAACP. We have meetings here in Philadelphia every third Tuesday of the month. One is coming up this Tuesday. It'll be at the Union Hall, 1310 Wallace Streets at 6 o'clock. We talk about all these issues. We take our charge from the national, we take our charge from the state, but it's us in the city that does the work. So again, it's important that you vote. It's important that you get involved. Thank you.
And thank you. And Catherine, am I right? Anybody can join the NAACP. Is that correct?
Anyone can join.
Anybody.
And it's $30 a year, so you get a wealth of information. We have over 15 committees that you can be a part of. Legal redress is one of them, but also there's a number of committees that you can join that make you a part of what happens. So, again, our next meeting is this Tuesday, 6 o'clock at 1310 Wallace. Thank you.
Justice McCaffrey, you have the final word.
Last, huh? I was actually just thinking about this, listening to everybody else's remarks, but next year, right here in Philadelphia, we're going to be celebrating the 250th birthday of the United States of America. We've all seen the commercials, right? This country of ours, or as George Washington, our first president, put it, this grand experiment in the Republican form of government, it only works if you work with it. Voter participation, as we've just heard, is critical. It's all about you being motivated, you being educated on the issues that are important to our Republican form of government. And that only works in the context of what we do if we're willing to listen to one another. We've all heard of the tragic circumstances of the fellow who was killed yesterday or 2 days ago on a campus. Partisan politics has gotten very vitriolic. We've armed ourselves in the camps now, and that, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is the recipe for the failure of our democracy. It's only going to work if we love each other and we listen to one another and we talk to each other, because that is the basis of what we do in a democracy, and that's how our government works, but we have to respect one another. So thank you all for coming out and doing what you do.
Thank you. I don't think there are any better words that could be said to end this panel. So again, I want to thank all of our distinguished panelists today and all of the wealth of information and knowledge that they have given us. Thank them for their time. We thank you for your time, for being interested in coming out. And again, remember, you got to share this at least one fact or two with 5 people. Can we make that commitment? 5 people. All right. To get us ready for our next election in November 4th. I know you have to go. But lastly, I just want to give one more thanks to Elaine Tomlin and Veronica Brito. Can we just give them one more round of applause? And Elaine, did you want to come up for final words? Oh, okay. One more picture. You all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And again, thank you. All right.
It was meant to be helpful.
you so much.